Welcome to Girlfriends of a Certain Age, a podcast for women in midlife. We are busy living our best lives. I'm your co host, Fleshay Hesh. I'm a business coach and work life balance expert for women.
And I'm your co host, Jessica Neighbor. I'm a voice coach for vocalists and public speakers online at Impact Vocal Coaching. We are girlfriends in real life, and in every episode, we'll discuss a different hot topic about becoming wise women, recovering from being a good girl, and not giving a bleep anymore.
If you identify as a girlfriend of any age and you want to join our conversation, join us on Instagram, YouTube, and girlfriendsofacertainage.com. Girlfriend, welcome back.
Hey, girlfriend.
This is pretty exciting. This is our first two-part episode on a topic that you and I are very, very excited to talk about.
Yeah, we're thinking this might need to be more than two parts, but we're going to start with it. Give it two parts at least.
Exactly.
Absolutely. On being the good girl pressure.
Yeah. So if you missed part one, I think it's pretty important for you to have sort of this understanding of what we're talking about and what our shared definition is of a good girl. So if you haven't heard that episode, pause this one, give yourself a little time to go listen to the first episode first. It's got the same title as this, but it's part one. And if you want to follow along and do the work, you want to workshop this, go ahead and click down below in the liner notes. We made a workbook for you, and we are going to walk you through the workbook. And if the idea is that we're going to be expanding on the question so that when you get to it, you know what we were asking you about. And I also want to remind you that Jessica and I are not licensed psychotherapists. And if this topic is feeling too hot for you, if it's triggering you, if it's upsetting you in any way, that's really good information. I would take the workbook with you to your next therapy session, or if you're working with a coach, and work it with them. And of course, it goes without saying, but if you don't have a therapist, this might be a really great time for you to go find someone to help hold your hand through the process of your own good girl recovery, or join a group or something like that, so that you are getting what you need in this process. But with that said, let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going, the questions in the workbook are numbered, so we'll just follow along with us. Feel free to pause if you need time to fill in your answer. Okay.
I love
so
it. I love
let's
it.
get started with the first one, which is the invitation for you to unpack your story or your history. Maybe you do it as a timeline.
Her story.
Her story of being a good girl. You heard us in the last episode do that for you, just really short and sweet. What was that arc for us? And how did we get to the point of deciding it's time to get some help? And then if you have some understanding of how did you get trained to be this way? And you heard me say in the first episode, yeah, I don't fully know all the details of this, that, and the other. And you know what? I don't really care anymore. And it's okay if you feel that way too. So put what makes sense for you. But the idea is for you to take ownership of your story, ownership of what happened to you. Were you trained to grow this way? Did you choose to be this way? It's okay, no matter what it is. And no one is going to see this unless you choose to share it with them. So be as honest with it as you want to be. I would also say, write down the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah. It's such a great exercise too to answer that question, because when you look at your past, it informs the relationships you made and what kind of relationships, and if there's a pattern, and if you're at a point in your life where you're really addressing what kinds of relationships you want to have. I think this is such a great inner work to actually help you with everyone you're relating to in your life.
It's so true.
Absolutely. So I love it. Okay. So after you've done your kind of reviewing your story, number 2, what is the cost of being a good girl? Why do you want to stop being so good? And this is an excellent question. What is the breaking point for you right now? What is it that is making you go, no more? or what has been that progression that has set that off for you? And what is the cost if we continue to be good girls? Or looking back in your life, what was the cost? What did you have to swallow? What could you not express? What could you not do, maybe, because you were too busy being a good girl? That's a really important question that is two parts. Again, what is the cost of being a good girl? And why do you want to stop being so good? Did
Yeah,
you want to
that's a
add
big
anything else
one.
to that, Felicia? Yeah.
No, I think it's sort of I think you did a beautiful job of expanding on it. I
Mm.
just I'm getting chills. I'm excited
Mm.
to see what other women come up with,
Yeah.
in exploring this for themselves, because most of us are so busy living our lives and working and taking care of others and doing all the things we do, wearing all the hats that we wear.
Yeah.
To take the time and understand this for ourselves is incredibly powerful and a little bit subversive. It's something that I think the culture doesn't really want us spending time doing,
Mm-mm.
but it's a gift we give ourselves. And this stage of life is ripe for us exploring ourselves. So,
Yeah.
with that, let's go on to number three, girlfriends. What are you afraid will happen if you stop taking care of everyone else? You
Ooh.
heard me in the last episode say there's been a big cost the different times I've stood up and said something, and then I found power through that. So for you to sort of understand, I think oftentimes we get into these dynamics with people and there are these underlying threats, right?
Mhm.
Maybe they're even unspoken in our families or in our work environments or in our relationships. So for you to give yourself some time to think about, well,
Mhm.
what are you afraid of? What is the worst
Mhm.
that could happen if you
Mhm.
stop putting everyone else first?
Ooh, big question. And like your experience was that, some pushback really did happen. Other people might fear that it does. You might be pleasantly surprised. It may not be as, difficult as you thought. But the fear of doing it might be holding you back, maybe from something that's happened in your past. So I think that's
Absolutely.
a really important thing to do, because I know that for myself, the more truthful and honest I'm being, which is definitely not a good girl role, the more I'm really feeling like I'm really connecting to myself and to other people in a just much more honest way, and it's so much more rewarding. So I think when I think about how I would answer that question, I think I feared more what was going to happen than what actually happened. Except in one case, which leads me to the next question. Number four, who are the toxic people in your life? And are you afraid of them? And I think that Felicia and I can both relate to having some very powerful toxic people early in our lives. And that definitely did need to unpack. We had to unpack that in a big way. So to make it safe and to have really clear boundaries for myself when I, broach the subject. And there's lots of different ways that you can untangle yourself. You can do it in a direct way. You can do it in letters. There's so many options. So I think sometimes when we think about naming a narcissist and what we would do, we think of this very like confrontational way. Uh, it doesn't have to be that way.
It
So
doesn't.
no,
No.
no. So yeah, just from my own personal experience, it can be a very like soft and very, very healing process.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. So let's go on to number five, which is
Great.
for
Hmm.
you to select one relationship dynamic to tackle. So maybe your trickiest person, or maybe your least tricky person, right? It could be someone who
Hmm.
sits next to you at work. It could be a relative. It could be a neighbor. It could be any number of people. But I
Hmm.
want you to write out your desired new behaviors, the behaviors from you, girlfriend, and the behaviors of that person.
Yeah.
So, kind of flip the script, if you
Hmm.
will, and just simply have a little daydream, a little fantasy of what that could be, what it could look like. from your, like, what would make you happiest, right?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think oftentimes we forget, just like Jessica said in the last question, that there's a way this could be a win-win for everyone. You know,
Hmm.
you setting boundaries doesn't mean that the other person has to lose.
Right.
And generally, when you set boundaries, it's so that everyone can win, so everybody feels safe.
Right. And most normal, well-adjusted people will respect those. And the folks that
Absolutely.
don't are the red flags.
Oftentimes, a really good test to test if someone is toxic or
Mhm.
narcissistic in your life is to just say no and see
Uh-huh.
how they respond,
Yes. That's
right?
right. That's
Yeah.
right. Can they handle
Yeah.
no? That's a
Can they
big one.
handle no?
Can they
And
handle no? It's as easy
that
as
is
that.
a very basic boundary that 2-year-olds are usually pretty good at, but
Right.
it gets
Right.
pulled out of us,
Oh,
or
yeah.
we let it go,
Yeah.
right? Or it's a combination. So have some
Wonderful.
fun with this. Have some
Yeah.
fun with what you want it to look like.
All right. And next question, number 6, is to ask an ally slash champion to support your new way of being. Lean on them intensely during your first boundary setting experience. Have them hold your hand. That is
Mm.
such a great idea. Uh, and I'll say that as well as my therapist, I definitely had my tribe, my inner circle, knowing what I was going through. I didn't tell everybody. I only told a select few because it was just really nice to have that support. Is this worth it? You know, you can start to self doubt yourself, question it. You know, those good girl tendencies might kick in again. So, really finding at least one real true ally who sees you, really respects you, and is going to support you, and hopefully they get it. They get who you're talking about. You know, they might see the picture too. It makes such a huge difference, especially because it is a moody process doing this, and they can really help remind you of the big picture when you're in the midst of it all. So you know, think of that person, and you know, you could even be really explicit with them and say, hey, I'm really taking this thing on, can I lean on you? You know, and to just like ask that friend explicitly, can you be here for me through this process? And I bet you they will be so flattered and so honored. And if they just have way too much on their plate, but they're your good friend, they'll also let you know that too.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
when I think back on this process for myself and who I chose as the allies, somehow I intuitively knew to go to the people who had been in my ear for some time telling me something ain't right there. How can you be friends with
Uh-huh.
so and so? What is going on? This person doesn't seem
Uh-huh.
like your person. You're still dating
Uh-huh.
that person? What, after that
Mm,
thing that we saw at the show? And wait, what? Those were the people I went to. I kind of disregarded what you said.
mhm.
One of the narcissists, my own mother, had been saying to me for years, "Oh, you're still friends with them. Last time she was over, I was just really concerned about some dynamics." My own mother, I was like, "Oh, okay. Mom, she had a rough childhood, Mom. She's been
Uh-huh.
through things, right?" Like I was
Right.
enabling. But
Yeah.
I went back to those people, hat in hand. I didn't listen to you when you were supporting me and telling me I was dating a bum. I had a
Yeah.
toxic friend who did not have my best interest at heart. I am so sorry I didn't listen to you. And thank you for having my back. Because now look at what Crazy Pants went and did.
Yeah.
And now I'm done. Will you help me? Will you love me through this process? Because turns out you were right.
Yes.
Those will be really good people for you to lean on
Yeah.
because they feel like you disregarded their opinion and they were looking out for you, and they've been watching craziness go down in your life for who knows how
Right.
long, or they can reflect that back to you
Right.
and strengthen your spine. That's what really happened for me. It
Yes.
strengthened my spine. Oh, right. Other people I like, know, and trust saw that I was in a bad situation, and they're there for me now to get me out of it. So if you're
And
wondering and
and
scratching your head
one
who could help you, that's a good place to start.
right. One thing to add on to that too, if you are an ally or someone who's supporting someone else going through this kind of process, this has been coming up a lot in our culture lately. I've been listening to some different excellent podcasts on cults and cult recovery. And one of the things people will say is, you can let someone know that you're concerned about them. And if and when they do come back to you for help, don't tell them I told you so. Never shame someone. They're going to be ready to recover when they're ready. And the best thing you can do is love them, let them know you are ready to go for it with them. But really, even though I know it's so tempting to go, how many times did I tell you this? And you pushed back on me and this and that and the other. Try to be the bigger friend and just say, I'm absolutely here for you. Let's do this.
Today's episode is brought to you by the 5-Minute Work-Life Balance Digital Workbook. Do you need help achieving work-life balance? I will teach you how to take back your time and your life. You can forget about feeling guilty, overwhelmed, and out of balance. You will discover the 9 unexpected strategies to achieve work-life balance. My name is Fleshay Hesh, trained as a marriage and family therapist turned business coach and a work-life balance expert for women of a certain age. I'm the mom of 2. I'm a CEO, published author, and a podcaster. So today you can get access to the digital workbook, my online course, and me, your coach, for $29. This is available for a limited time, and the link is below. Yeah, number 7. So take a deep breath for this one, girlfriends. Be prepared for the backlash, right? Because it might be coming. There could be gossip. The person who you had to set a boundary with could discard you, turn their back on you, flip the story that you were telling, make themselves into the victim. They will shame you. They will gaslight you, or worse, they just act all kinds of crazy, start doing weird things. It can happen. It can happen. Yeah. It's another reason why you need an ally, why you need help or support. And if someone you think maybe is dangerous, you definitely want to get yourself a licensed therapist.
Yeah, that's a really, really key thing to think about. Great. Okay. Number 8, be prepared for feeling elated and the hangover effect. It can be intense.
Yeah, right. So how you feel after you set boundaries with someone who you have allowed to not treat you well, or you're involved in a dynamic where things aren't going well. Yeah. When you do, plant that flag, draw the line in the sand and say, no more. Yeah. You could feel elated, like, oh my gosh, I feel like I just won the lottery. It's all I had to do was say no. All I had to do was stop it engaging in that thing, which could be really exciting. Or you could feel really regretful. Oh boy. Oh boy. And that's more what I'm calling the hangover effect of like, oh gosh, why did I do that? What gave me the courage to think I could stand up to so-and-so? Why did I think I could do that? So I think there can be a lot of different feelings, and they can flip-flop and it can come in waves. That those feelings can be intense and they can be surprising. And even in one moment you're feeling elated, the next moment you're feeling regretful that you shouldn't have said anything, and shaming yourself and gaslighting yourself. So it's more about being prepared emotionally, not just for the practical things that could happen, but for what you tell yourself, how you support yourself in that process.
Okay, I totally get that now. Well, maybe I'll ask the final question, and because I think I can understand this one at first glance more. Enjoy the feeling of freedom on the other side. Oh, and then we have, now comes the hard part. Yeah. And we can get into that in a moment. But I think that is so important, to enjoy it, celebrate it, really love yourself up for being so brave, for taking a stance on not being a good girl, on really, going to your truth and speaking it is key. All right.
But I do think it's important that we not just look at the process of unhooking ourselves from something
Mhm.
that's not healthy for us, but
Mhm.
we're calling this good girl recovery. When we
Mhm.
hear people talk about being in recovery, it's like
Yeah.
um, they're always an addict, right? Or hi, I'm
Mm.
Flachet, I'm a recovering good girl. So the
Mm.
idea is that we're never fully on the other side. It's almost like there are little strings pulling us
Mm.
back into the old
Mhm.
way of being because it's comfortable.
Mhm.
It's what we know. It's what we grew
Mhm.
up with. And so
Mhm.
it's really important to ready ourselves for this
Mhm.
brave new world. And so by
Mm.
calling it a recovery process, we can do that. You can read books about codependence. You can read books about um, all the, and all the different kinds of addiction or
Yeah. All the different kinds
it's
of
just
narcissists. There's
all
the
kinds of
benign, the
narcissists,
malignant. There's like
the
so
covert.
much. There, yeah, there's so much more in our culture right now. So much awareness around narcissists and, people taking them on and really deeply discussing them. So yeah, there's so many great resources out there for
Yeah.
us. Hmm.
Yeah. So I think it's important to think of yourself as being in a recovery process. So get the
Yeah.
support that you need and
Yeah.
maintain it,
Yeah.
right? Because so many people, dealing with it, and I do think of this like being like an addiction, but so many
Hmm.
people who are trying to stop taking drugs or stop
Hmm.
overspending or stop their alcoholism, they have to always remind themselves that will always be a go-to when they feel stressed, when they
Sure.
feel anxious, when they're grieving, when they're hurting for whatever reason. They might go back to bad habits. And
Yeah.
so might we. So we're
Right.
never really out of the woods. And
Right.
by keeping this conversation going, by listening to a podcast like this, it keeps us engaged in, right, I've got to keep taking care of myself. I've got to
Right.
always, every single day, I need to set good boundaries for myself. And I have to
Yes.
say, for myself, being a parent now has really helped me with that because
Hmm.
now I'm raising these kiddos. I want
Hmm.
them to have good boundaries. One of my kids has already dealt with a narcissist, and
Mm.
I had to teach him. I had to teach
Mhm.
him what it looks like, what
Yeah.
and naming the different parts of it. It's been
Mm.
fascinating
Yeah.
to be able to do that. Because imagine if you and I had someone when we were kids
Yeah.
teaching us about toxicity, teaching us when we were in bad situations, teaching us the different parts of it so we could stop personalizing it and say,
Yeah.
oh, that's just
Right.
part of the playbook. That's just
Right.
oh, it's not personal. It's
No.
not about me.
And
Oh,
I love what you say about the recovery piece too, for those of us who might be, in this kind of middle age category and recovering. I think there's this fallacy that, or this sort of expectation in our culture too, of like, I fixed it and it is fixed forever. I have arrived and now I am here. And that is very much connected to that good girl fantasy, that like, and now the story is happily ever after. So what does it actually mean to, be in recovery or to be in more of like a discovery about the new parts of yourself? It's an ongoing, discovery that you're always doing. And it's not just this like one and done and it's wrapped thing. But how great, because then that means we can always be living and learning from our experiences, even the most painful ones, you know? Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great, great reminder. Great reminder. So you mean to tell me, Flachet, that we aren't going to do this like great question and then we're just done? We can just fold this away and be good for the rest of our lives? No, no. All
No,
right.
it's
Yep.
like reading a book on potty training and one time and then
Yep.
thinking you've got all the different parts and all the
Yep.
different scenarios. It
Right.
it just isn't how it works. If you
Right.
really want to learn something, you probably have to read it or listen to it a couple of times, sit
Mm-hmm.
with it, talk to other people about it. I think all of us, I know I was surprised how many other people identify with being a recovering good girl in my own
Mm-hmm.
life. And now
Mm-hmm.
we go out for coffee and we talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so healing to be reminded,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not just me. There is something in the
Right.
culture. There is something in the way a lot of us were raised.
Absolutely.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Um, and it's what makes me feel less alone, and
Yeah.
to be able to talk about this and on this platform and to
Yeah.
speak to so many other women about this with you and like having you
Yeah.
hold my hand in this process,
Yeah.
so empowering. It feels like
Yeah.
another level of my own healing from what
Yes.
I've been through. And
Yeah.
most of us, can't help others with something until we've gone through it.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are. This is part of our healing
Mm-hmm.
process.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll say that it was all worth it with what I did. It was just absolutely all worth it. It makes me wiser for, other narcissists coming my way in my life. And it just makes me more intentional about how I relate to others and relate to parts of myself. So it's well worth it, even though it's a hard task to do. So you guys who are sitting down and who are, thinking about these questions and thinking about these answers, I would just encourage you to allow that good and bad and vulnerable part of yourself to come out in this, because that's okay. The more of yourself you can bring to it, the more honest you're going to be. And that's really all we can be at the end of the day, is really honest with ourselves. So allow that without judgment, allow that without critiquing. And we're here for you, because we've been there and had to challenge those little voices that said, "Oh, what did you just say? What did you just feel?" Yep, I went there. I just went there, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
I think it's such a great note to end on.
Mm.
It is so worth it. Our hope and our intention with this two-part session is empowerment. It's
Mm-hmm.
your empowerment. If it's time for you to step up your good girl recovery process, we encourage you and we support you, and we stand here on the other side saying that it was worth it. It was worth for us and our own process, and the
Mm-hmm.
friends and family that we know and love. um, I personally don't know of any situation where it wasn't worth it, but when you going down the wrong road, it's never too late to turn around.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important to listen to your own truth and to know what's important to you. And
And one
you're
one caveat that I think is responsible for us to pick up is if it's ever a situation where you actually feel like you could be in danger, or that there's a threatening environment, because there are those narcissists who can be violent and scary, then you are going to want to ensure that you're in a safe place. And I think that's all the more reason to really get guidance. A social worker, a healthcare provider can also give you some opportunities and options, because that is going to be something where you absolutely want to make sure you're safe.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just are so excited to be on this journey with you,
Yeah.
the highs and the lows of it.
Yeah.
And girlfriend, I want to thank you for showing up today, for showing up for yourself.
Yes.
And till next time,
All right, girlfriends, hang in there. Bye. Thank you
bye.
for tuning in today to Girlfriends of a Certain Age podcast.
Do you have a girlfriend who needs to hear this message? Share this episode with her. She will love you forever.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and comment wherever you get your podcasts.
Stay tuned for more episodes where we discuss more hot topics about girlfriends living their best lives. You can follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and girlfriendsofacertainage.com.